Oh man, we are back with more disturbing stuff. You would think folks watching videos on Top 5 Scary would prefer some lighter fare, right? That was a joke, in case it flew over any heads. Of course, we'll deep dive and find some more nastiness to explore, so let's get right to it. The Top 5 Most Disturbing Scenes in Horror Movies, Part 3. Coming in at number 5, we've got The Razor Maze from Saw. Saw is a series well known for some extremely upsetting imagery and near unsolvable puzzles involving the desecration of the human form. The first few movies had some interesting messages and a story that hinted at something larger and then quickly devolved into some of the premier torture of the early 21st century. Blood, guts, and sadism sold back then. Hostel was at its peak and other movies did their best to emulate what was going on. But this era of unforgiving pain and suffering had to start somewhere, and a lot of the crazy stuff that happened can be traced back to the very first Saw. James Wan, before his transition to working with Blumhouse and eventually scoring the director's chair for Aquaman, was a horror genius with something to prove. And with his first major hit, he showed the world a whole new side of squeamishness. After trying many times to get this flick greenlit in Australia, Wan and his co-writer Lee Wanell went to LA, found a little money, and ended up making the most successful horror movie in years. Saw was beautiful in its simplicity and its brutality. It did a whole lot with a limited budget, cast, and story, and one of the most disturbing moments isn't technically part of the story on screen. It's all done up in flashbacks after a dead man is found tangled up in razor wire. Apparently the Jigsaw killer had kidnapped this man and placed him at the back of a cage filled with extremely sharp stuff. The victim was given a limited amount of time to make it through this maze of deadly wire lest he be trapped in the dank basement forever. The image of a naked man struggling his way through a trap while razors tugged at his flesh is not a pleasant one, especially when you see how deep it all cut. At one point, it even sliced his belly open so much so that stomach acid leaked out. The panic, paired with the ungodly pain of being cut over and over again by your own body weight as you try to pick your way through a near impossible maze, is unbelievably anxiety-inducing. And of course, that's barely even part of the actual tale. It's just a nod to how sick and twisted Jigsaw can really be, which throughout the series is proven time and time again. Sure, the Razor Maze isn't as visceral or plainly bloody as a lot of the other Saw kills over the years, but it set the bar and likely inspired many other traps. This is a slow, painful, and claustrophobic death. The detectives on the scene remarked that he died of blood loss and they had 2 hours to make it out. And you can bet that those 2 hours were the worst of this poor guy's life. I know for sure that folks out there will be contesting my pick for Saw kills on this list, so fire your favorite down in the comments. Coming in at number 4, we've got Death by Window from Final Destination 2. On to another 2000s franchise that took great pleasure in creatively killing its victims, the Final Destination series is jam-packed with disturbing scenes. Death itself takes the reins here, dealing unalive to all sorts of folks who have somehow cheated this otherworldly force at one time or another. Now, in a lot of horror movies, there are a few taboos that most will avoid. Most of the time, you can bet on any kid seen on screen surviving. Well, at one point you could. Kids could be evil, kids could be creepy, but kids wouldn't necessarily fall victim to the slasher or supernatural force or accidental drop from heights. Final Destination 2 fakes out the audience by convincing them this is the case here too. There's a young lad who heads down to the dentist. Bad news from the start, as kids hate getting their teeth worked on. Sitting in the mechanical chair, having random stuff poking at your gums, and of course, the drills. All around nightmare fuel. And in this situation, it appears that the kid is going to die while sitting in the dentist's chair. This is a Final Destination movie after all. But after a bunch of close calls, he makes it out. Free as a bird. Maybe a little nervous and definitely less willing to go back, but for now he lives another day. And no, he doesn't. An enormous glass window pane falls down and crushes the lad, shocking anyone who thought he was getting away from this one. A double fake out. It might sound like this moment was treated in the style of Looney Tunes. You know, something falls and crushes somebody who then emerges missing some teeth and folded like an accordion, but not so much this time. Because of the nature of the glass, it's see-through and heavy, all this kid's blood and guts can be seen leaving his body, like squishing a Capri Sun. Nasty, unexpected, and wholly shocking, this set a new standard for Final Destination kills and did something a lot of other movies might have shied away from. Sure, it's not like anything out of a Serbian film, but folks expect to be unsettled to their core while watching stuff like that. Final Destination is supposed to be exciting and fun, and well, I don't know the last time somebody described child death with those two adjectives. Coming in at number 3, a little blood art from Trouble Every Day. French extremism. We talked about martyrs last time, and we've definitely discussed Raw on this channel before, but what about Trouble Every Day? Claire Denis deserves all the attention in the world and often flies a little under the radar. This wholly disturbing erotic cannibal gem is chock full of horrifying moments, but the one that sticks out the most has to be when our lovely man-eater manages to seduce a dude, bite his tongue out, and poke a hole through his cheek. And the fun doesn't end there either. She feels a moment of artistic inspiration and decides to make hay while the sun shines. And by that I mean she paints the walls with his still warm blood. Beautiful. This competes with a few other magic moments, like when a dude bites a hotel maid to death after assaulting her and then plays it off like it's nothing. What a movie. Coming in at number 2, we've got The Home Invasion from High Tension. See, we're back with some more over-the-top French violence. We love to see it. When a flick gets an NC-17 and then has to be re-edited so they can screen it in American theaters, you know it's a good one. What do ratings boards really know anyway? The very first scene in this movie is just incredibly, senselessly, sickeningly violent. Late one night, a trucker knocks at the front door of a family's home. When Dad opens up, the trucker immediately opens his face up with the straight razor and then decapitates him with a bookcase. Up next is Mom, who has her throat slit, and then the brother gets chased into a field before being dispatched. All of this is seen by the family's daughter Marie and her friend Alex. Alex ends up being kidnapped by the trucker and Marie pursues them. Just imagine being the daughter of that family who was brutally slaughtered right before your eyes. Absolutely terrifying. Plus, and I don't want to say too much about this, but there's some additional information that we learn later on regarding the killer that makes this whole ordeal even more disturbing. Check it out. And coming in at number 1, we've got Hot Knife Castration from The Human Centipede 3. Truthfully, any given scene in any of the Human Centipede movies could make this list easily. Just take a moment to fire your least favorite in the comments. I want to know if my sensibilities line up with yours. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the pick. The third entry in this heinous trilogy essentially takes everything from the previous two and almost kind of parodies it all. We've got a sadistic warden obsessed with consuming human body parts for different purposes, who stumbles across the second Human Centipede movie and uses it like a textbook of sorts. There is so much awful shit that goes down here, but I can't imagine something more upsetting than getting your dangly organs removed by a power-crazed lunatic with a scalding hot knife. He just cuts them right out and then uses the ball blood on his face like cheap lotion. He really gets in all those nooks and crannies. Then he has them cooked for lunch. Truly perverse stuff. Who are you, Tom Six, and why are you the way you are? Any queasiness you might be feeling will pass, I promise. These were simply explanations of horrific things that have happened on the big screen. If you want to feel uneasy for extended periods of time, you can go watch the movies yourself. Lovely. So what'd you think of the list? Do you agree with my picks? Should I have gone darker? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more inverted ones from the top 5 horror movies worth a rewatch. AR13 says, Event Horizon should be on every horror movie fan's top 10 list. The only movie to ever give me nightmares. See, that's good to know. I'll keep that in mind, just in case I ever need to keep you sleep deprived. KDS Entertainment says, it's over. Let's wait until Keegan finds out that the new Paranormal Activity movie already has a release date. Wait, it does? It does, and it's a reboot. Jeez Louise. Give it some time to marinate. Jeremy Bloswick says, I always liked Devil. It was part of my buy every VHS from Blockbuster that ever existed phase. Ah, those were the days, eh? A77 War Robot says, Keegan, you have been talking about so many horror movies. When will you run out? Well, hopefully never. And Black Obsidian Joe says, I agree that some movies deserve a second chance, but this could go with any genre, not just horror. Well, you know, the thing about this channel is that we always talk about scary things, so I think we'll stick to horror for now. And that's the time we have for today. I'm gonna go try and get some silly putty using Amazon 2-day shipping. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.